Everyone, thanks for joining another episode of DIB Innovators. Again, special episode at the 47G Zero Gravity Summit here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Have the honor of meeting with Dr. Paul Hendrickson. He's the program director for Air Force Strategic Programs at Draper and also is the Utah campus site lead. So thanks for joining, Paul.
Thank you. It's good stuff.
Or do you like to go by doctor?
Paul's perfect. Please, Paul.
Perfect. So tell everyone a little bit about yourself. I mean, sounds like a cool title. Like, how did you get there, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so was a career Air Force officer, spent 21 years in the Air Force, kind of a combination between program management acquisitions, systems engineering, as well as ICBM missile operator. So I got a really cool mix of both operations, engineering, as well as program management. And then retired about 2 years ago, made the decision to move to Utah for some family reasons. And it was a fortuitous time to retire to Utah with my skill set. And Draper, the Charles Stark Draper Lab, was looking to open a campus back in Utah to support all the work that we do for strategic systems and other customers in the Utah area. So it was very fortuitous timing to be hired to come out to Utah and open a campus. And so that was 2 years ago. We have a campus now in Clearfield, Utah, and we're breaking ground on a building on Hill Air Force Base, and we're up to 23 employees in Utah. So it's kind of a fun 2 years.
That's a good transition. Out of 21 years, I did the same, so very cool. You're, for those that don't know, what is Draper? What does it do? And what is the concept of a site, as a site lead at campus, if you will?
Yeah, so Draper is a very cool company. We've been around since the 60s, part of the MIT Instrumentation Lab. We built a guidance system that got us to the moon. We've continued to do that type of work, guidance, navigation, and control, hard environments, etc. In the 70s, we became a nonprofit organization, spun off from the MIT Instrumentation Lab, became a private company. And since then, we've continued to do all those different things, radiation-hardened microelectronics, strategic systems. We are the prime contractor for the Navy's guidance system and their sea-launched ballistic missiles. And we've played a role in every ICBM in one way, shape, or form, all the way up through Minuteman, and we're continuing to support Sentinel. So that is what a Draper is. From a campus perspective, obviously we were based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, as a spinoff from the MIT Instrumentation Lab. And then over the last, we'll say 5-10 years, we've really embraced the campus construct. Go where the customers are, go where the talent is. Our CEO likes to quote Edison's Menlo Park example, where you can either hire the people to come to you, or you can go to where the talent is. And by developing these campuses, going to where the customers are, really gives us an opportunity to both do really cool Draper things for the customers, but also attract talent in places where people want to live.
That's awesome. Now we're here at 47G. So Utah, I'm a Colorado guy, but super impressed with the ecosystem that's built here. How have you participated with 47G? And talk to me about that ecosystem a little bit. Have you experienced it since you've left the Air Force?
Yeah, so again, retired, moved back to Utah where I grew up. So I'm actually back home. And the work that we do at Hill Air Force Base supporting the ICBM programs was what I was expecting to be doing supporting Draper. What I found coming back to Utah after all this time is, they have all the buzzwords. They're the fastest growing aerospace and defense ecosystem, et cetera, et cetera. But I found that the environment here is very conducive to the types of things Draper is looking to do, partnering with our educational mission, partnering with industry partners, figuring out how to bring new and exciting technology as a defense ecosystem. And so when we first got to Utah, I had the opportunity to meet with 47G. At the time, it was Utah Aerospace and Defense, right before they rebranded. And they have been phenomenal partners in connecting us not only with the organizations that helped us build to break ground on a facility on Hill Air Force Base, but also connecting us with like-minded companies, education institutions, finding ways to forge private-public partnerships with the government, again, to try to bring a strong sense of defense, industrial-based security and national defense as we grow in the Utah area.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's been so many cool companies here right now, and just the ecosystem that they're brought together, there's a lot of power. What was the biggest transition lesson learned for you leaving, the military and then jumping into, Draper?
So other than having to pick what I was going to wear every day, that got a little complicated. Transitioning was probably less dramatic than I expected. And I think that's possibly because in my career, I was able to work in a lot of different organizations, right? I didn't just stay in one acquisitions command. I got to work at a joint program office for the Army. I got to work DoD programs. I got to work at the DOE. And so what I found is that it's the same people, the same patriots, the same people that want to work in national defense are populated throughout Draper and through all of our different partnerships. So as far as the transition from that perspective was not that hard, finding like-minded people that want to do good things for the country. I think the most unique part that I found is that the way things are done is slightly different. Understanding how in the Air Force or in the DoD, you are the customer, and now I'm working for the customer. And so figuring out how to understand what the warfighter needs, what those gaps and those seams are, has been probably the biggest transition. But it's also been a great opportunity to bring everything I did and translate it over to what Draper's looking to do and to make those connective tissue connections.
Yeah, talk to me about a lot of, friends have made this, similar transition. And then the military or in the Air Force, for example, you have these requirements, but a lot of times you don't know what's in the realm of possible. So how have you found the transition instead of listening to what they want by pushing what they need because of your experience, but they're not ready to hear about it? Have you run into that much?
I mean, absolutely. And I ran into this when I was on active duty as well, because I, was able to serve in a number of different roles, sometimes being the actual customer to the customer, right? And I think it comes down to education, and it comes down to patience, and it comes down to listening. If you enter into conversations with the warfighter with a curious mind, right, you're more likely to hear what the warfighter is actually looking for. But, this kind of goes back to, innovation, right? Innovation for innovation's sake, I think, is one of those fun buzzwords we're throwing around. We must innovate, right? What if we're not innovating? And what I found is that if you pair, first you have to build a culture, right? Based on trust, psychological safety, delegation with actual delegation, and empowerment, you can grow a team who can actually accomplish amazing things. So if you grow a team like that, and then you give them an opportunity to not only listen to the warfighter's needs or the actual needs of your customer, good things happen, right? You form that dialogue of trust where not only can you iterate on what the customer needs, but you can also bring forth innovative solutions that may actually solve their problems in different ways. If you get yourself in a very transactional relationship where I need X and there's no conversation on what X might look like, then you find yourself in these stovepipes where you're, overpriced, overcost, and you never actually quite get there. The other cool thing that if you can form those relationships well is you can really focus on, sometimes they use the word minimal viable products, but really it's, sometimes the 80% solution today is much better than the 100% solution tomorrow. But if you don't understand what those seams and those actual pain points are for your customer, it's really hard for you to bring forward well, I know you want X, but what if I could give you Y today? Would Y actually solve your problem? And sometimes they're like, well, actually it would. That would be great. So it's having that dialogue and that trust relationship that really can open that up.
That's great. How often do you guys work with small businesses? This place is full of them.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, you could tie it out the normal buzzwords you would hear in these types of areas, but one of the things that Draper really, we'll call it, prides itself on is our ability to partner with small businesses to bring things forward. We actually have a great program called Draper Sparks. It's a new program we stood up, and it's a way to bring small businesses that may not have an ability to get to the national defense ecosystem, partner them with customers looking to solve hard problems, and then partnering them with capital that could also help along those lines. Primarily focused for, classified partners or partners that aren't looking at them, but it's really helping them cross that valley of death. Now, Draper in and of itself is not necessarily a large company. We're a little over 2,600 employees now, but the relationships that we've forged with our Department of Defense and other defense customers really has given us the opportunity to help onboard small business. And, for those of you that had an opportunity to see the panel earlier today where our Chief Strategy Officer, Jen Santos, got to talk a little bit about this, it's really that trust relationship again, right? If you're a small business and you've got cool stuff, if you trust that the partnership you're forging with a company like a Draper or a BA or a larger is going to be grounded in a partnership, then good things happen, right? And that's really, it needs to be a partnership, not a, you're my sub, give me what you're due to me.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge small businesses have that you've seen now that you've been working with them?
Funding, capital, obviously, when you're working in a capitalistic environment, you're meeting the needs of the market, right? If you come up with the next, cool gadget, then you sell it on Amazon and you're good to go. When you're trying to partner with the government, you're at the mercy of, budget cycles. You're at the mercy of palm drills. You're at the mercy of being funded and unfunded. So you may get some small business startup capital. It gets you to X, but Y is 2 years away. And so as a small business, how do I keep the lights on and my employees employed if I don't have good venture capital? And so the more ways that companies like Draper or the government can find to keep small businesses alive through the innovation, that's how you solve the value of death or the value of opportunity or the value of China, so to speak. Because if we're not careful, these innovations are going to get snatched up by other people that don't have problems when funded programs.
Absolutely. How have you seen these small companies deal with security, cybersecurity specifically, both from IP, from risks to business?
So again, not necessarily my area of expertise, but something I've been learning and got to work a little bit on that on the Department of Defense side. It's really bringing them in early is the most important part, right? A little bit on the conversation of dual use technology, right? Is it commercial going DoD or DoD going commercial? And it's creating relationships early on where companies like a Draper or any of our Department of Defense partners can bring the small businesses in early and design in the cybersecurity protection from square one. Whether it be on capital funds, making sure they're clean, whether it be on making sure the right protections are in place. So if you start with a mentality of, I need to keep this protected, and then find a partner who can help you with that, that's the best way forward. It's really hard to snap those things on after you're like to the
Oh, yeah. That's, big tech debt and trying to go back and change it. That's definitely a challenge. How does Draper view, and I'll just use broadly, but I can dig into AI?
So Draper actually is using AI in some very novel ways, right? So we're never going to be a big data cloud like a Google or an Amazon. But what we found is that there is we've been around for almost 90 years, right? And so we've got 90 years of deep tech and capability at our fingertips. And so we were actually launching some of our own internal AI products, Draper GPT, for lack of a better term. And we're going to use that to try to get around some of the labor-intensive data mining processes. So, training the tools to look for the seams on technology, training the tools to answer questions in a more quick format so that our technical experts can spend their cycles on the bigger problems or the innovations, and then having the AI tool help you with that. I think personally, my biggest concern on AI in the defense space is two terms. One is garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you're not training it the right way or you're not entering in with the right assumptions, it's going to give you an answer. And if you don't understand the foundational principles behind that tool, you're going to trust an answer that may not actually be grounded in facts. And then the other concern I have is if you go back and you look at the developments of the 60s and 70s, right? SR-71 Blackbird, the space shuttle program, Minuteman III, those were designed by 60, 70, 80 engineers designing a subsystem. Now we're using 2 or 3 engineers with an AI tool or a digital engineering tool to design that same subsystem. So no matter how good your algorithms are, or your machine learning, at the end of the day, you're losing out on the innovation of those grains. And so how in this industry moving forward can we capitalize upon the intelligence that a human being brings that you're never going to be able to generate from an AI? So don't use it as a solution, use it as a tool,
Right.
but then use those creative juices to actually solve bigger problems. I think is going to be the biggest challenge.
I think that's great. Well, talk to me about the Utah campus site. Where are you guys going to be in 5 years? What are you looking to do?
Oh, wow. So right now we have a campus. It's in Clearfield, right off Hill Air Force Base. We're building a new campus on Hill Air Force Base, 30,000 square feet. It'd be state-of-the-art engineering, innovation, development, and potentially production facility. It'll be built with appropriate classified infrastructure to do the types of things that we do for the customers that we support. But really in the 5-year time frame, in a perfect world, Hill Air Force Base will be fully up and running. We'll be supporting our customers. We'll be partnered with the local universities. Utah has a phenomenal university pipeline, both of the tech colleges and the universities where, we're working with them, growing the talent pipeline to do those critical roles in the future. And then, hopefully competing with the rest of the country to build those next things that Draper is going to do to help the country.
That's awesome. Well, Paul, thanks so much for joining today. I know it was a quick one, but I appreciate that overview and your perspective. Great job transitioning. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
If people want to follow Draper or Utah, the Utah specifically, how would they do that?
Draper.com.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Easy. All right. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much for the time.